All right, so the year 2022/2023 means what to you, Joe Thomas? And all of you've accomplished in life and the things that have come your way, how do you view this period of your life?
I think this is kind of the pinnacle of all of the things that I did athletically from the time I started playing third grade rec basketball in Wauwatosa till going to Wisconsin and playing track and football for the Badgers, getting drafted by the Browns. This is like the final pinnacle moment for me in my sports career. And it's very special because I got 4 kids. My oldest, her only memory of me playing any sport whatsoever was eating peanuts off of the concrete floor at Cleveland Brown Stadium when I was playing football. And sports have been such a big part of my life. I mean, from the time I was in third grade when I started playing rec basketball and Brookfield youth soccer, sports has been the biggest part of my life. And to be able to now share that with my kids in just a small little way, even though we're not going out there and playing a game on enshrinement Saturday, for them to be a part of that and to kind of see how important it was to me and hopefully sharing a little bit of that is really special.
Could you have envisioned it? I know that's such a cliched question, Joe. You were always good in just about every sport that I know. I don't know about soccer maybe, but the ones that I was familiar with you playing. Could you have envisioned getting to the so-called pinnacle?
I don't think I ever envisioned it, and I honestly think that was one of the benefits that I had because I was so happy playing any sport. I didn't really football or basketball or track or baseball or soccer. I just loved the sports. And so that allowed me to kind of absorb the things that were happening around me, try to be the best teammate I could, try to have the most fun that I could without giving up any one sport, to try to be better at one thing with some long-term goal in mind. And I think that focus on multiple sports and teamwork and the values that it comes from playing sports helped me become the best possible football player I could and take me all the way to the Hall of Fame.
You used the word fun in that sentence, and to me you look like you have fun in just about everything. Does that help you too? Has that helped you?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like, I've been very blessed and fortunate in my life that the things that I've been able to pursue when I had the opportunity, first in college pursuing track and football for the Badgers, and then in the NFL pursuing a career as a football player. I mean, what little boy from Brookfield, Wisconsin doesn't dream of having an opportunity to play football and get paid for it as a living? So I feel amazingly fortunate, but it was also really easy for me because I loved it and it was so much fun. And when you chase your passion like that, when you have parents that are tall and athletic, it really helps because then the end of the rainbow looks like the NFL Hall of Fame sometimes.
Well, your kids then, having parents that are tall and athletic. Speaking of parents though and support, you had all that. I know you still have that. When you speak, I feel passion, and part of it seems to come from that support. And I remember going to your games and it was evident. This isn't a road you traveled alone, is it?
No way. Eric and Sally Thomas, my parents, they were absolutely the best parents that I possibly could have had to support me, not only off the football field or away from sports, but athletically, because they love sports. They wanted to support my passion, but they weren't pushy about anything. They just wanted to show up and be a fan, be my biggest supporter in whatever avenue I wanted to go down. And I think that was really important because I never got burned out as an athlete. I never felt like, mom and dad are doing this, or they're over coaching me here, or they're pushing me there or that. And I never felt any pushback. And I think that was great because it allowed me kind of pursue the passion, which changed from soccer to AAU basketball to track and field and ended up on the football gridiron.
And you have done it all in the Midwest. There are similarities between where you grew up and where you played your professional career. Were you just a good fit? Was that part of this too?
Yeah, I think that was one of the big reasons why I had success in Cleveland, but also kind of fell in love with that area because it felt a lot like Milwaukee from the moment I stepped off the boat in Port Washington and got on the plane and headed to Cleveland. It felt like home because it felt like Milwaukee.
You talked about the boat in Port Washington, and that's always going to be part of your story. That to me at the time was an example of you doing things your way and within the structure. And I always kind of saw you maybe as a football player the same way, and maybe in your post-football playing careers, you're doing things your way, but within the structure. Is that your personality? Is that being an offensive lineman? What is that?
So I think one of the things that's cool about being elected to the Hall of Fame is you reflect back on your career, but also you get asked a lot like, hey, why were you good enough to be in the Hall of Fame? Like, what made you special? What were those superpowers that you had that were better than a lot of your other peers to be able to get you on the Mount Rushmore of NFL football? And I think one of those things was that I was willing to look outside the box and think outside the box. I was willing to push the envelope and maybe, like you said, within the rules, within still being a good teammate and a good coachable player, like I was willing to think about like, hey, why are we doing it that way? Maybe we should try this way. I'm going to try to do it this way technically, maybe schematically, and see what happens. Like I've always been a person that really loves trial and error. See what happens. Let's just see what happens if we do it this way. And I think that really served me well because it helped me develop a technique, especially in pass protection, that was very unique. And it's something that now you see a lot of guys carrying on and adopting, which feels really special to me because I feel like I've left a little bit of a mark on at least offensive line play within the NFL.
So how did you, or now as you reflect, do you measure individual success when you didn't have a ton of team success, Joe?
Yeah, that was always a challenge. And mentally by year 10 and 11, I was starting to be a little bit broken by giving everything that I could. And even more than that, just to get the most out of yourself as an athlete, you got to believe that you can win. You got to believe that you're on a team that if everybody pulls together, you have the talent to have success. So you get the most out of yourself. And year 10 and 11 became a struggle for me, which were my last 2 years, because I started seeing that we just didn't have enough talent to compete. We'd have the Packers coming to town and they got Aaron Rodgers and we got somebody not named Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to put anybody on blast right now, but it became difficult knowing that it didn't matter what I did. I could go out and have the best game an offensive lineman has had in history and we're still probably going to lose. And that wore on me mentally. But I think being able to kind of step back in those moments with the help of my wife and some of the people with the Browns and help me understand like, hey, just because what you do is not going to maybe directly impact a win or a loss, you still have a huge impact on this organization. You have a huge impact on this offense. You have a huge impact on the city of Cleveland. So don't lose sight of that because how you play still matters. And I think that was really important for me. And so now as I transition to be an elected and then an enshrined NFL Hall of Famer, it feels like maybe some of that hard work and that dedication, that commitment, even though you didn't get the wins, it was still worth it, the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears that I put in, because now I'm going to be rewarded someday, hopefully taking my grandkids to Canton and showing them, hey, you know, Grandpa, he probably is not running around the block with you anymore, but he used to be an athlete back in the day, and he was good enough to make the Hall of all the greats in football.
And look at his bust. Look how handsome he is.
Yeah, that's right. It probably never really looked like that, but it was a really handsome looking bust.
You were always, and I think it's fair to say always, kind of at the top of your sports. And you know, in Brookfield, people knew who you were. Wisconsin, everybody knew who you were. Cleveland, everybody knew who you were. So you get a platform with that. Now you have a platform as a broadcaster and as you know, what you're doing with Sports Advantage. How have you handled that, Joe? Some guys, gals, you know, maybe take advantage of some of that or take some shortcuts or don't fully embrace the platform. How do you think you've handled that all the way through?
Yeah, so I was very studious watching my teammates that had retired before me and trying to figure out, you know, what were the things that worked for them? What were the things that, you know, kind of ran into some dead ends? Because you know a lot about challenges that pro athletes have when they retire. Obviously, orthopedically, we're not in tip-top shape because we've lost a lot of cartilage. We've donated it to the game of football. So maybe you don't feel quite as well as other people that are your age. But I also wanted to know, like, the guys that do find happiness and success outside of the game of football, like, why was that? And it's not always the same thing, but I think the number one overarching theme was that they found purpose in their life, serving something bigger than themselves. And as an offensive lineman, like, that's kind of your motto. Like, I'm not grabbing any handoffs or catching any passes, scoring touchdowns, getting sacks. So what can I do for my team? And understanding that I'm a servant as an offensive lineman for the quarterback, for the running backs, for the tight end, for the receivers. I'm a servant for the rest of the team on defense to be able to keep them off the field, give them a rest so so that we can keep moving the ball down the field. And I think that gives you great purpose when you're playing, and when you're done, if you're just trying to serve yourself and your own needs, like, I just want to go fishing all day today. I just want to go in the woods and hunt and just forget about everything. For a few months, it sounds great. But after a while, I think you feel like you're just kind of treading water. And so for me, I saw the guys that were servants in their community and their focus was giving back, right? Because you do get a great platform as an NFL player. You get obviously paid handsomely, so you have finances to be able to do what you want to do, however you want to give back, but you have notoriety, you have influence. And I wanted to make sure that I was going to use that to help the communities that were so important to me when I was growing up in Brookfield. And then when I played college ball at Madison, and then when I played and lived in Cleveland for 11 plus years. But I also wanted to make sure that since the focus when I was playing was me and my sport and my teammates and my team, that my focus in retirement was going to be my kids and my wife. Like, that was going to be the priority. So I wanted to make sure that they had time and that I could focus on being their servant and being the best dad and husband that I possibly could. And it's not really measurable, so maybe it's not a good goal, the people that say that these are what goals can be. But I think for me, I get excited getting up every morning because I know that my job is to be the best dad and husband and community member that I can be, and that's something that I can strive for and be proud of.
Having a wife who was a high-level athlete as well, did that help? And if you saw in her eyes respect for your consecutive game streak or being the dad you are now, does that give you pride?
Yeah, there's no doubt that the thing that gives me the most pride are two things. So that's not the thing. So the two things that give me the most pride is knowing that Browns fans and Badger fans are proud of me as a player and what I've done for my team and my program. And then my kids and my wife and my family being proud of me as a dad, as a football player that hopefully has accomplished some things at this point in their life. And I think that was one of the things that I think makes great offensive linemen is you want to please your coach, you want to please your teammates. And that was definitely something that was really deep and innate inside of me. It gave me great joy and great pride when I made them proud of me. Just the same way that when I made my parents proud in high school, getting an honor or doing well on a test or getting good grades, getting into certain schools, playing at Wisconsin, like that gave me the most happiness was knowing that they were proud of me.
Do your kids give that to you now?
A little bit, in kids' own special way. I'll give you an example. So when I was announced as a Hall of Famer in the 2023 class, my kids, they knew I played football, but there's not a lot of Browns fans around here that are going to be jock sniffing them. But all of a sudden, I was elected to the Hall of Fame, and now they were coming home from school and asking me questions about my career. And they were telling me, hey, my buddy Tommy, he said that my dad was one of the best offensive linemen ever. Is that true, Dad? Or, hey, somebody at school wants to bring a football card for you to sign it because they heard you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. Is that okay, Dad? And having those moments was really special because, like I said, one of them wasn't even born until I retired. And then the other three really don't have any memories of me as a football player, which is cool because they just think of me as a dad. But it is also cool to have some pelts on the wall and some respect from these kids every once in a while for doing something besides just yelling at them around the house.
Look at that, guys. Look at that.
That's right.
Your perspective is admirable now. As you said, you're elected to the Hall of Fame, so naturally you do some reflection. But you had to be, 20, 21 years old when you played on defense, ended up maybe risking some of your future football prospects for your team. Where'd that come from?
So I think that goes all the way back to my youth coaches, Brookfield Central, the Junior Lancers, the Brookfield Lightning soccer team, the Wisconsin, the Brookfield Magic basketball team. Like I had so many great coaches and parents that were involved in teaching me the principles and the values of what makes a great teammate and why that's like the most important thing that you can do, not only in sports, but in life, just being a great teammate. That just has so many great connotations. You hear about these high-level businesses. They want to talk about their team, right? They don't want to talk about their employees. Because when you're doing something and the other person's success matters more than your own, that's how teams become better than just the sum of all the parts. And I think those coaches and my parents were the ones that taught me those values early on.
It's interesting that you would say that because you are a youth sport parent now. A lot of us have been youth sport parents, and you can see some horror stories or some, influential things that are going the wrong way with youth sports. How do you observe that stuff, knowing how it was for you and how important you think some of that is?
Yeah, it's tough to watch sometimes because I feel like I have a pretty good handle on like what were the things that were important in my growth as an athlete, and to see like some of the horror stories in youth sports right now, it makes me cringe because it's the opposite of what sports are all about.
So you're last on the speaking dais, you go up there last. Have you prepared your speech? Will you be tweaking it to the very end?
The speech is ready. I'm sure we'll be tweaking it, a few things here and there as I think about it as we get closer, but it's in the can, it's ready to go, and the nice thing is we got a teleprompter. So if I start crying too much, I can always still read even though I was an offensive lineman.
Do you anticipate being funny at all, Joe?
I think we'll throw in a few funny comments, but I think it's important. You only get 7 or 8 minutes, and you want to make sure that it's all about gratitude, and you don't want to try to make it a comedy routine, but you do want to keep people awake in case it's a little bit warm. And I am the last speaker, so guys might be a little bit tired and ready to go hit the open bar.
I've been there a few times though, and the time limit's a good idea for all involved, I have to say, so on those speeches. Did you go to Canton at all? I mean, you played in Cleveland, you spent a lot of time in Ohio. Did you go there? What'd you think as a guy who might just walk in and look around?
So my rookie year in Cleveland, our head coach Roman Cornell took all of us down to the Hall of Fame, which was really special. It was a lot of fun being able to see, hopefully where all of us dreamed of ending up someday. But I have not actually gone to see the speeches yet, and I think I'm going to watch a couple of the speeches the week of, just to get a sense for flow and just, I think, to help build a little bit of confidence. But I'm also excited that it'll be kind of the first time for me when I'm up there on stage.
You know, you talk about, it sounds like you want to prepare yourself. You want to be ready, you want to know the flow. Offensive lineman and your preparation, legendary for not being caught off guard. How much does that help you? How much you try to impart that thought maybe on your kids, on the people you're impacting?
Yeah, my dad was really a special person in my life growing up, not only as an athlete, but off the field. And one of the things that he was really good at was giving me little very poignant tips, but not overwhelming me with information. So when he talked, it was important. And that was one of the things that, you know, he was really good at, I think, was just giving me those little reminders, those little confidence boosters, and helping me understand like how important the details were, how important preparation is. And as an offensive lineman, that is everything about your job, is being prepared so you're never caught off guard.
What's the response been like with your friends and your former teammates?
Yeah, everyone is so excited for me. Sometimes I feel like they're more excited for me than I am for myself, because there's a part of me as an offensive lineman that still is a little bit uncomfortable with the spotlight on me, because I'm used to that being holding, offsides, you gave up a sack. Like, I'm much happier when nobody's talking about me, nobody's calling my number out in the stadium, so this is going to be a little bit different.
How about your high school friends? A lot of our viewers are going to remember those teams and those guys, a lot of whom went on to their own success in various fields, or, you know, whatever may have happened in life for them. How are those guys responding? How do you feel when you think back to those days with them when you guys were all just kind of running around town playing sports together? Yeah,
they're really excited because you can see the same pride that they have in the accomplishments that I have had as people in Cleveland, as Badger fans. And it's really special to me because seeing those guys, hearing from them, brings back those same memories for me, playing for Brookfield Central in the state tournament in basketball, in the state finals in football, in the state track meet for Brookfield Central, throwing the shot in the disc. And I think it's those memories that when I have a chance to reflect back on my career, that I get the happiest about. Just having those memories pop up and seeing those guys does that.
What was your best athletic moment, Joe, all the years?
That's a good question. Because it's weird, as an offensive lineman, we don't really have moments. But I would say the game that I played against DeMarcus Ware, oddly enough, who is one of my fellow enshrinees this year, played just about a perfect game against the best defensive player in the NFL at the time. It was in Cowboy Stadium. It was on turf, so he was extra fast and extra strong. And I played a really, really, really good game. And I was really proud of myself, but probably nobody remembers that because we lost, but nobody called my number the entire game. So I think when I think back and reflect on my career, I think that was the biggest challenge I ever faced, and being able to accomplish that still gets me excited thinking about it.
So what motivates you now?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just that purpose, trying to be a great servant, trying to be a great community leader, being a business owner, being a great dad, all those people around me, just trying to give back in any way I possibly can. That's definitely what gets me out of bed, and that, and if the fish are biting.
Sports advantage. What is it? What's your message to people who see this? And how different is all of this from when you were coming up?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I really wish that I had access to when I was coming out of middle school and high school, because it allows you to train not only your body as an athlete, a well-rounded athlete, not a sport-specific athlete, but just learning how to move, learning how to develop muscle and explosion and speed and quickness. But I think learning how to develop your mind, I think it would have really benefited me when I was a youth athlete, because as much time as you have in sports as a kid, you're dedicating it primarily to practice, which there's a lot of great lessons you can learn from that and from the game. But having an opportunity to train your body and your mind at a high level like we do here at Sports Advantage is amazing, because it's great to be able to see all the kids that we've trained that have now gone on and played college sports, or gone on, and a lot of them have played pro sports. It's really great, and I really wish that I had that opportunity. It's part of the reason that I'm so passionate about being able to give back and open up different sports advantages now in Menominee Falls, Oconomowoc, and bringing it back to those communities that I grew up in.
I'll wrap with this. Hall of Fame is often attached to the word immortality. Basketball immortality, baseball immortality, football immortality. That's pretty powerful stuff, Joe. If somebody says that to you, Joe Thomas grew up in the Milwaukee area, played high school sports, went to Madison, had fun as a Badger student, but also as an athlete, and then played a decade of the game you love. What does the term mortality mean to you?
It's weird thinking that, because I don't think of myself as a Hall of Famer, as somebody who is part of football immortality. And I wonder if it'll sink in down the line. Don Davey from the Badgers and the Packers was texting me yesterday, and we were talking about a bunch of different stuff. He's trying to get me to do an Ironman, and I'm like, dude, I can't run. I can't even walk 26 miles, much less try to run it. But he said, I just want you to know how proud all of the Badger Brotherhood is of you. And it made me really proud thinking about that, and thinking about, as a Badger, being part of football immortality, and all of Badger fans and Badger athletes that I played with, and guys that were even before me, think of me among the greats in football immortality. And maybe someday it'll sink in. He was like, I hope it sinks in someday. I'm like, I don't know if it will, but